One common critique I see about Hunter x Hunter is the heavy use of dialogue and monologue, especially the current arc, which some readers find overwhelming. Hell, even I know one awful person hates the narrator in the Chimera Ant arc. Yes, I know, she's fucking awful. I get why some fans feel that way. At times, we Hunter x Hunter fans out here reading a light novel at times. And I for one love it, and while I personally enjoy it, I want to put myself in the perspective of someone who doesn't like there being too much dialogue, and understand if that criticism holds any weight. And then I also want to give my perspective. The show, don't tell debate. We all heard the classic storytelling advice, show, don't tell. This technique immerses readers through action or drawing, rather than exposition. Many people throw this term around without actually thinking about it. It's very similar to that mindset of more money equal better animation. That's not how it fucking works. The same applies to show don't tell. Many say those words, but people don't realize that doesn't automatically make a story better. You can apply that technique to every moment and every scene, and not every series relies on it to tell their story, as there are many more storytelling methods used to enhance the story. Look at any detective or murder mystery series. How would an author convey the story by just showing us, when we need all the information related to the mystery? Thus, this genre requires a lot of dialogue and monologue. There's also this thing writers call setup. Yes, I know, it's crazy. Many look at Hunter x Hunter fights and go, there's so much dialogue in the Chrollo vs Hisoka fight, when Togashi could just be showing us the fight. There's so much wrong with that statement. Not only is this set up for the fight, so we the viewers can fully immerse ourselves into the fight, as we're right alongside Hisoka trying to figure out how Chrollo plans to win, as we've been told all Chrollo's cards. Then there's also the fact that Chrollo explaining all of his cards to Hisoka plays a purpose in the story, as it was meant to trick him into assuming something else. There's so much more as to why scenes are presented like this, which makes sense. Dialogue and monologue are necessary. The same applies for the current Hunter x Hunter arc. Now the question is, why is there so much dialogue? Is there too much? Is it bad? Could Togashi use more show techniques rather than relying on tell? I'm not a writer. Hell, I don't think I read a lot of manga. I read more yaoi than shonen at this point in my life. But as someone who's very dumb and not an avid reader, yet I was somehow engrossed into reading Hunter x Hunter and enjoying every page I read, no matter how long it is. And I want to share my perspective as to why it's amazing and why it works. Let's start by looking back at two specific arcs and see how the dialogue and monologue compares to the current arc, and how it differs and why it works for that specific arc. The Hunter exam arc focuses on character-driven dialogue, where the majority of the words spoken is intended for the viewers to learn more about these characters, which makes sense, as it is the first arc. But not only that, the exposition surrounding the lore is very limited to and related to the Hunter exam. For example, what are hunters and what it means to be one, and also exposition on the areas where they are taking the Hunter exam, such as Millsy Wetlands, Trick Tower, etc. Something Togashi does so good is he limits his dialogue. What I mean by this is that the dialogue Togashi writes in the arcs are limited to what the arc is focused on. There is no need to do random important lore drop or foreshadowing intended for future arc. Instead, Togashi does a wonderful job of transitioning between arcs, making it seem so seamless. For example, the end of the Greed Island arc, the way he connected it to the Chimera Ant arc by using the company card that took them to Kite was very natural. It's not bad when writers drop important foreshadowing or lore for future arcs. It gives writers more options in the future. But to me, when it's done a lot, it bothers me a little, as they mention something important and interesting and just cut the conversation there, as it's not time for that arc yet. Hunter x Hunter doesn't do it that often, where it makes me go, why tell me this now? There is one moment that made me yell that, saying Gon and Gyro will meet one day. That fucking got me. It made me a little mad. Why mention this now? Now, as for the Hunter exam, the exam serves as the vehicle to explore these characters and their morals, personalities, and seeing what motivates these characters to take this exam that can result in death, making for a very natural dialogue about themselves to come up in the story. Next is the Chimera Ant arc, or more specifically, the Palace Invasion. It's very unique in its storytelling. I'm of course talking about the best character, the narrator, who takes on a prominent role, which I know someone who hates him so much. She's awful. Now, as for why some may dislike the narrator, it's because the characters almost seem to take the back seat, and it's the narrator in the driver's seat, as he's doing the majority of the monologue. Some people may argue that the narrator's monologues disrupt the action, making it harder to fully immerse themselves in the scene. For example, when Pito, Netero, and Zeno see Meruem Hokomugi, the narrator describes the moment in detail, that some might feel if there was no narration and only silence, it would still convey the feeling intended. Not entirely, but I say it's fair to say that we will get the basic understanding of the scene and emotions being conveyed. Keep in mind, I for one don't think this, but I'm putting myself in the perspective of someone who's not the biggest fan of the narrator and try to understand why some feel this way. I myself don't see it that way, as from my perspective, I believe there are reasons for Togashi's decision to use this storytelling method. Number 1. No character knew what the fuck was going on. I'm being a little dramatic, but also not. The narrator is there to convey what the characters are feeling and experiencing, as the characters aren't fully processing what they're thinking and feeling and what's happening around them, as everything is happening so fast or beyond understanding. This entire episode, only 10 seconds passed, by the way. That's how fucking insane it is. There were even moments where the narrator explained how characters didn't know how to explain certain moments or actions because they didn't understand, such as Pito and Shoot. Thus, we are in need of an outside party that's omniscient to describe and explain these characters' actions, feelings, etc. And when one thinks the narrator over-explains, scenes like this scene, for example, when we saw Knuckles stop himself from telling Gon about Yuppie, and following that, we hear the narrator saying Knuckles barely just stopped himself when we just saw that. To me, it's meant to emphasize and highlight the moment more. If one removes the narrator, sure, it might look cool, but this isn't what Togashi wanted to convey. Number 2. The narrator moves the story forward. Those that think the narrator puts the story on pause, when in reality, the narrator helps push it forward. Let's say that Togashi decided to remove the narrator and write all of that monologue for the characters to speak. It wouldn't be natural. If each character had to articulate every thought or details that the narrator says, it will feel forced. The narration allows the story to continue without forcing the characters to pause for monologue or exposition. Number 3. The last reason why I think Togashi decided to add the narrator. Hype, hype, hype. I don't know how one doesn't hear the narrator talk about all these characters in such a cool way as hype. It's meant to hype the show. It's meant to hype the viewers. That's the last reason I believe why Togashi did this. It's so fucking cool. This approach may deviate from the show don't tell technique, but that's because Togashi has a specific intent. The narration is purposeful. Even in moments where silence might have worked, that's not the result Togashi wanted. These two arcs highlight how the dialogue in Hunter x Hunter works. One being the normal, limited dialogue focused on the arc and characters itself, and the other being such a unique method of dialogue unlike anything we've seen done before, and it being done on purpose. So where does the current arc with the most dialogue we've seen by far fall in? The answer is the former. There being more dialogue is because that's the nature of the arc itself. Much like the Hunter exam, where dialogue serves to build character and introduce us to the world, here it fits the complex and political nature of the arc. The dialogue dives into strategies, alliances, and scenarios, all of which are central to the plot suspense. Hell, I will find them more strange if there wasn't 20 pages of monologue going over so many scenarios and what the best option would be. If the characters didn't take it as serious and deep, why would I, the viewer, take it as serious as they do? Why would I be so invested if they aren't so invested themselves? To me, this puts me inside the character's situation more by seeing all their perspectives to such a degree, making these characters feel alive, as all of them, even side characters, has such an impact to the story, making the world of Hunter x Hunter feel more alive, as not everything in this world moves only because of the main cast of players, but even side characters impact the arc, which is so cool to me, and I love it so much. Like, give me more Rihan light novel pages. I want that so much. Fun fact, this page alone has half the words of chapter 1 of Hunter x Hunter, and this is what I love about Hunter x Hunter. These characters are all alive and real to me, which makes me more immersed, that I find myself thinking, okay, this character is thinking of this, how is this character going to react and plan? And the best part of having this mindset is, Togashi is going to fulfill these wishes of ours, as he will show us how this character is going to react and plan. Just look at the conflict between Benjamin and Hulkenberg, where we see both sides plan and react to the other's actions. Now there is some criticism to be found here as well. One reason I believe why many find themselves not thrilled when reading this arc and may find it to be a chore to read at times can be found in this one iconic page that got memed on by different communities. When looking at this Rihan page, you can see the entire monologue here is revolved on what the arc is about. All these characters trying to one-up each other, as whoever is one step ahead is going to win, so the majority of the dialogue in this arc is related to strategies, nano abilities, worst case scenarios, etc. Not to say there isn't dialogue that's character centric. We got moments like Kurapika and Queen Oito coming to an understanding, Kurapika and Bill becoming friends and finding trust in each other and newfound respect. There are many moments where the dialogue isn't all about strategies, nano abilities, but I can see why many are put off when they see pages like this. But even then, something Togashi does so good is even when all these characters strategize or the way they go about these plans are different, emphasizing what sort of person they are. To me, there's a perfect balance between the dialogue, where we get a different variety, making for such a fun read, as whenever we switch perspectives, it's like I entered a new world, and I love it so much, and I wish to see more of it, and see how this arc is going to end. This style isn't for everyone, so I hope anyone who watched this video comes to learn a new perspective.